I saw something run in the corner of my eye every once in a while, or heard the sound of knives sharpening when no one was in the kitchen. Let's see what happened next. So, subscribe to Horror Hox and hit the bell icon for notifications. I was around 5 or 6 at that time, and we were moving to a different province. We did not have a place yet, so we were staying at a nearby shelter while looking for one. I forget where the shelter was, but we were told it had been transformed into a shelter after someone decided to make use of the abandoned building. We were told it was half an institution or something years and years before I was even born. Anyway, we had a strange room. I would say it was about 8 by 9 foot room, with a heavy metal door and 2 bunk beds. One on either side of the room. The bunk beds had metal framing and seemed a tad bit unstable, and the mattresses were hard. The floor was concrete, and not even a tiny window, but we didn't complain because it was temporary. We were the only ones living in a room on that floor. I remember very vividly that my siblings and mother were in the kitchen preparing the food for the shelter, as it was their turn. That was part of the agreement to stay there. Plus, there were at least 40 other people. It was 2 to 3 floors and had a basement. I remember going to bed early because I was really tired, so my mom opened the heavy door and let me in the room, turned on the light, and waited for me to climb the ladder to the top of the bed before saying goodnight. She then turned the light off and I snuggled in the blankets, but I could not fall asleep, so I stared at the ceiling. I don't know how much time had passed, but I then heard the bunk bed on the other side of the room creak, as if someone was climbing up the ladder on that bunk bed right across from mine, and since my elder brother was the one who slept there, I spoke thinking it was him, and he somehow quietly snuck into the room to not wake me up. So when I heard the creaking stop, indicating someone was on the mattress across from me, I said, "Hey Aiden, you didn't have to sneak in? I cannot fall asleep," only to get no response. This was unusual for him since he had usually said something right away, either to tease me or help me sleep, however. I got no response, just the sound of the sheets rustling a tiny bit. I assumed he did not hear me, so I spoke louder. "Hey Aiden, did you guys finish the food yet?" No response. To this, I became a little bit worried that something had him upset, so I sat up and turned my head towards the bed, hoping that I would be able to comfort him if he was upset. I'd barely got his name out of my mouth when I realized it was not him, but a dark figure, some girl around my age at the time, had 2 braids and a puffy old-fashioned dress. She had been sitting crisscross, staring and pointing in my direction. I of course got so scared I could not scream, thinking if I did I would be harmed in some way, so I stayed quiet and hid under my blankets. A few hours later my mom came in and turned on the light, with my siblings behind her. I saw the light on, so I automatically assumed someone was in the room and I was safe. So I shot up out of under my blankets, quickly climbed down the ladder and hugged my mom. She asked me what was wrong, since I was still shaking, but thinking that that girl was still in the room, waited till the next day when we went for our morning walk to explain to her what had happened. After explaining what happened, how I could not sleep, and heard someone go on the bunk bed across from me, thinking it was my older brother, and then saw the girl with braids and a puffy dress. That was just a pitch black figure. My mom was horrified, but just to be sure it was not my imagination, she went asking people in the shelter about a supposed ghost, giving no details about what I had told her. This lady, we all call her Courtney, told my mom, yes, there is a spirit roaming. It takes the form of a girl and has 2 braids and an old-fashioned dress. She used to visit me every night, but suddenly stopped when you guys moved in. We were the only children in the shelter, so that might have been the reason. I don't know. My mom replied to Courtney, well, my daughter saw someone with the exact description you had given me, and at first I thought it was just her imagination, or something like that. Anyway, Courtney then walked away. Things were pretty quiet after that. I saw something run in the corner of my eye every once in a while, or heard the sound of knives sharpening when no one was in the kitchen, and the occasional sounds of screaming from the basement when no one was down there. However, it was a family room you could book. One day our family had booked it, and there were kids' toys, colored maps, wooden tiled floors, and a TV. We were watching Land Before Time, and I looked at the dark side of the room in curiosity. And there she was, standing in the middle of the dark side of the basement. She ran around the corner. The basement was in an L shape, and we were using half of the side of it. Anyway, at this point, I was more curious about her than afraid. I kind of thought she wanted to play since she was in the toy section of the rooms, so I followed her, thinking it was a game of hide and seek. I stood up from the couch without a word, and my mom asked me where I was going, but I did not answer, and just walked into the dark side of the room, which to her was strange, since I had a fear of the dark back then, as most kids do. She was confused as to why I would go into the darkest side of the basement, where light did not reach willingly. She followed me, and I entered a dark closet. I started looking around frantically, and kept asking, "Where are you? Do you want to play with me? Is that why you keep running around me?" I asked over and over, questions along those lines. My mom was concerned, turned on the lights, picked me up, turned off the TV, and brought me and my siblings upstairs. She asked why I was acting the way I was, and according to her, I said she wants to play. After that, the rest of my family started getting scratches and tiny bruises. Within a week, my mom found a place, and we moved there, leaving our toys and stuff behind, believing the spirit could have possessed them to follow us. We only kept a few clothes, money, food, and IDs, and we bought new stuff at the store, and lived on the other side of town from the shelter.